405. Now, before I left, I said with the many economic challenges in South Africa currently with the COVID-19 pandemic and a technical recession, SMMEs are often hit the hardest. Budget constraints, reduced spending power and inadequate preparedness can make it almost impossible for a business to survive. In many cases, this causes companies without adequate support to not be able to continue operating. SMMEs in industries such as supply chain, logistics and material handling will be hit the hardest during this time. Now, Nemkula, Executive Director at Shumani Industrial Equipment, Victor Nemkula, joins us via Skype to discuss how small businesses can better manage and mitigate challenges during these challenging times. A very good morning to you, Victor. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question, obviously, there seems to be very testing times for SMMEs, especially those in supply. How does the 21-day lockdown break this chain system?
Jacob, the lockdown because of the COVID-19 came in at a very bad time for the SMMEs, because at the time they were already facing challenges with the global recession in the South African economy. So it's going to be rough with the disruption of global supply chain, goods coming from China and from many parts of the world being stuck at the ports, and some of the goods that have been imported not even reaching our shores. So it's going to be very tough from a cash flow point of view for many businesses.
And then what is the likelihood that some of these small businesses will actually survive this 21-day lockdown? I mean, I read a story the other day about Edcon, even as big as it is, not being able to, or possibly not being able to pay the salaries of their employees in the coming months.
You know what, the challenge is going to be very, very bad. Most small businesses don't have the operating cash flow that would last them a month. To start with, forget about when they are not operating at all. So 2.3 million small businesses in South Africa, making 98% of total business activity in the country, is going to be rough. I don't see many of them surviving the next 21 days, let alone if it gets extended, if you look at the behaviors of many of our people in the streets.
Could small businesses like my own, I run a coffee shop out of Joburg CBD, and I've obviously had to slow down my operations and almost stop come 21-day lockdown since Thursday. What about a company like me? What happens to somebody like me who sells coffee to a certain amount of people who are supposed to be at work, but because of lockdown and slowing operations down, I don't have any more walk-in customers? What are the prospects looking like for somebody like me when I look at the 21-day lockdown, post-21-day lockdown?
You know, there are certain costs that you are not going to postpone unless if you negotiate with your service providers, like your landlord. Your rent will need to be paid unless you get a payment holiday. If you've got a loan with a bank, that loan needs to be serviced unless you get a payment holiday from the bank. More so if the interest on the loan that you've taken are lifted for the period that we are under lockdown. Your staff, depending on how it is done, with a contract, I suppose most of the guys are paid on commission or tips. But if there are overhead sitting on your businesses, I don't see how you will survive unless you've got cash stashed somewhere. But for a typical small business, it's going to be tough indeed, because at the moment you are not operating, so which means you're not generating any income, but you still have to continue paying overheads. So unless something is done, is going to add another 1 to 2 million people unemployed in our economy.
Victor, could the answer be for a business owner to actually make contact with their landlord and make contact with their bank and plead for things like payment holidays in the hope that when things do come back to normal, they'll at least be able to start operating again, at least operating from somewhere?
That is exactly what any business person would need to do. But you know what, it also depends on your relationship with your landlord and your bank. I heard yesterday the banking association saying that will depend on your profile and the relationship with the bank, how you manage your banking affairs with them. So if you haven't been managing the banking affairs with them in good spirit, it might not apply to you. The same with the landlord. If you are behind with your landlord in terms of payment, before the coronavirus, you can just imagine that they are not going to give you that payment holiday. So, you know what, it depends on a small business in terms of the relationship with the suppliers or with the suppliers. But in general, you need to make those arrangements with your key service providers. And in this case, any small business owner would have made those arrangements already before the lockdown. Making the arrangement now is probably a bit late.
Now, in terms of the JSE slowing down and losing momentum and Moody's recent announcement, how does this trickle down to the average man on the street and specifically the one who is a business owner, from informal to formal?
Well, it's going to hit us all because there is surely going to be a reduction in business activity in the country, not only now during the 21 days, but beyond. If you are going to have many people unemployed, the triple effect is that you are going to have less customers in the market. So it's going to be rough. I mean, not only small business, but big companies are going to be hard hit because the condition, and also depending on who you are servicing. Big companies now, they are trying to extend the payment terms. So moving away from 30 days to 60 days. We are getting a lot of some of our customers telling us that they want to extend the payment terms. So how are the small businesses going to survive? Big companies are not trading at the moment at all. So there is no income. So the effect on the economy is going to be felt across the board, from the small business to the big corporations and from the general public at large. So all of us are going to feel the pain. And I think we need to brace ourselves for the hard time in the future.
Victor, could we be, I don't know, selling ourselves a pipe dream if we say we're looking forward to government giving us some sort of reprieve post the coronavirus outbreak?
You know what? The fiscal position of the government is fairly restricted at the moment. They do not have money. Our debt to GDP ratio is encroaching on 70%. The government does not have the fiscal position to do anything at the moment as we speak. So I don't know what government will do, and I think they were caught flat-footed in this respect. They were really not prepared if you look at the stimulus packages. I think they are still working something out, but the impact is just too big. They will have to prioritize the industries. The tourism industry, the department has already provided 200 million rand. There are some money that are being put aside, but I think it's just too small. I think we'll just need to be creative. And I'm hoping that post this COVID-19 pandemic, many small businesses will need to be more creative going forward, because there are risks that most of us would not have priced into our business, daily business activity. So yeah, something will need to be done, but the government does not have the space to do much for small businesses now.
Before I let you go, Victor, I actually want to touch on that subject of being creative and innovative. What are some of the innovations that you've seen on how small businesses have sort of found different ways to adapt to still being able to trade, considering that the odds are literally against them?
You know what, I think now is the time, because we are forced to be creative. So there is no way, in any event, even in this stage, we need to be creative. One of the ways that most businesses are trying to find out is whether we could push some of our services online. And I think this will obviously have an impact on consumer behavior, where consumers will rely on technology to trade, to buy, or to access the services and goods. And I think that is where small businesses would need to be more creative in terms of pushing most of their products and services online and try to cut on unnecessary overhead. The other thing will be to have, working capital that will cover them for a longer period of time, not just a month, but for them to survive for more than 2 months. Most small businesses, as we know, are survival businesses where they operate from hand to mouth. But I think that period is behind us. We'll need to save more in order for us to survive the tough times that are coming ahead.
Victor Nemkula, thank you so much for your time. He's the Executive Director at Shumani Industrial Equipment. He's been talking to us about how SMMEs, particularly in the material handling and supply sectors, are affected by the pandemic and how small businesses can survive this time. Now, do you own a business?